episode 1 of the J&Z Podcast, where this episode we reviewed Back to the Future.
Yes, we did.
Back to the Future? Oh, wow.
Super exciting. This movie's been out for 900 years?
It's not 800 years.
800 years.
800 years.
Exactly.
Yeah. So there's going to be spoilers, obviously. If you haven't seen it,
watch it.
We're basically going to walk through the movie start to finish. We'll tell you about what we really liked about it, what we really didn't like about it, maybe some weird kind of quirky stuff that we found kind of from the beginning.
And something that we're also going to do that might excite you is that the next couple weeks, we're going to do the entire trilogy. Right. Today, we're doing the first one. Next week, it'll be Back to the Future Part 2. I kind of like it more than the first one. And then we're going to do...
That's a hot take.
It's a hot take.
That's a hot
it's
take.
controversial. And then we will do Back to the Future Part 3. So we don't want you missing out on anything. If you want to, you can watch Back to the Future first and then watch our podcast. That way you're not a little hazy on the details.
Pause the video.
Yep.
Watch the movie. Come back.
You can rent it online. I mean, we have.
You know what's
sources.
funny is I have Netflix, I have Hulu,
Yep.
I have Vudu, I have Watch, and I have every streaming service known to man, and I couldn't find it.
Oh yeah, no.
I had to buy the movie off of YouTube, and I'm sitting in my office, and I'm like, "Are you kidding me?"
I know. I also looked on HBO Max because I was like,
HBO Max.
HBO Max. It was like a Hail Mary. I was like, please have it. And I was like, do I have to give Jeff Bezos money? Oh, God. Okay, all right, Jeff Bezos, just pretend that I didn't rent this on 4K. Which the 4K edition? Did you watch the 4K edition?
I don't know if I watched. I probably not. It was on YouTube. That's where I watched it. So I'm gonna say no.
The 4K edition, it looks really good, but I gotta admit, I miss the kind of grainy 1985, like...
That's fair.
Like, I kind of miss that. For some movies that we're gonna do, I'll probably get the 4K edition and have you watch that, just to get, like, a perspective, because some movies, it's like, did we really need to see the unibrow on that guy?
That's fair.
Did we really need to see the scar under his eye?
I think that's like something that people grow to love about older, especially sci-fi movies.
Oh, 100%.
Like, not to get too far ahead of myself, but the scene at the very end where he's on stage and he's singing and he's like, "Dad, George. And he's like dying because he's like, being erased from existence. And his hand his hand comes up and he's like, it's like so clearly a fake hand.
Oh yeah.
And it's like they're trying to remove it, and it's just like it looks bad, but obviously back then it's like Terminator.
Amazing. Oh yeah.
Like that first Terminator movie where he's like looking at himself in the mirror. And
he looks like a puppet. He looks like a puppet. Like he starts pulling his skin, and it's just like, oh god, is that an Arnold puppet?
Yeah, but then like I'm sure back in like the 80s they would see that and they're like, holy shit.
Like, oh, how did they do this?
How? That is movie magic, baby.
And Disney saw that, which actually, funny enough, Disney turned down this movie. They said it was too risque, but
so they even got fired after it aired.
Mr. Disney. Whoever was Mr. Disney probably got fired for that because, I mean, obviously Disney has blood money. But they obviously like passed on this, and then they saw how much it made, and they're like, that was a mistake, but it's still in the 1950s.
I feel like it would be like the same thing as that guy that bought a pizza in 2013 for 10,000 bitcoins.
Oh, I didn't hear about that. That's really bad.
He tries to keep it on the down low.
Did you know, actually, speaking of movies, Blockbuster could have bought Netflix?
Wow.
I'm not even kidding you. Google this. Blockbuster had the chance to buy Netflix, and they went, no, streaming? Are you kidding me? People need to get in their cars.
Am I saying that word right? Streaming?
Yeah, exactly. Waters are streams. Like, I don't want to spend $30 on gas. I want to drive over there, and I want to smell that dust of popcorn and sticky kids, and I want that. No one's going to watch movies at their home.
That is amazing. I did not know that.
Google it. It's insane. It's absolute. Like, there were even commercials where it was like, Netflix, more like Poopflix. Like, just absolutely stupid. But talking about the special effects, it won an award for special effects in 1985 from the Academy Awards. USC has actually named this one of the a perfect screenplay.
Interesting.
And if you go for that course, I believe that's one of the samples that you have to read is the Back to the Future screenplay, which by far it's one of the greatest screenplays ever.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, I think so.
Like all the pacing, which we're jumping around right now, so again, spoiler alert. It's the pacing of the movie is still really, really good.
I think so, yeah. Well, with that being said, let's jump into like the first
beginning.
So to set the stage, and let's see how well I can remember it.
Yeah.
So it cuts in. They're in Doc's like garage place.
Great Scott, it's me.
Doc's a hoarder. Like if A&E hoarders came out then, that place would be a fire hazard. Like you would find like animal carcasses in the back because he was like, Marty, I did an experiment.
Well, like, okay, picture. Let's do a scenario, okay? So let's say like I'm a home invasion artist, or otherwise known as a robber, right? Yeah. So I break into this dude's house, and I'm like, okay, there's clocks everywhere. There's a big, huge pile of dog food that's rotting, and under this bed there's plutonium. Or like nuclear like materials. Like and that what do you do in that situation?
You make an anonymous call to the cops.
Hello, 911?
And he's like, I was gonna destroy this place, but it's already been destroyed. If anything, I'm gonna tidy it up. But seriously, this guy's got plutonium. Like he's gonna end up on a watch list.
Yeah, okay, so Marty comes into shot.
Oh, but the place is just like if you've seen it.
Yeah.
But I really like the foreshadowing because when you watch it, I didn't pick up on this, but because I was a stupid kid. On the TV, there's a woman reporting, and she says, plutonium has been missing from the Libyans. And watching it as an adult, I was like, okay, that's really cool that they had that as a foreshadowing. Obviously, it shows the plutonium, so any person is like, plutonium. Like, obviously. But even as an adult now, I saw that, and I was like, that's actually really cool.
They do a lot of that throughout the movie, and we'll try and mention that the couple things that we picked up on, which I'm sure there's more.
Oh, yeah.
But they do a really great job of, like, placing something. What I've noticed is it's about, like, 20 minutes. So, like, you'll see that, and then all the different scenes will happen, and then it'll call back to that. Where he finds out how he got it, basically.
Exactly.
So
Marty shows up.
Yeah, Marty comes in a shot. He's looking for Doc. He sees all the clocks, and for some reason, apparently, what Marty likes to do before school is destroy property, vandalize, and then lie.
Let's just also say how good Michael J. Fox looks in that scene.
Oh, yeah.
Like, the beginning of it with the black jacket, the Ray-Bans.
Absolutely.
Like, it's such a great setter for a film in introducing your character, because they could have introduced it where he was in class.
True, yeah.
And being a smart aleck or whatever. Like, it really could have set it up with that. But you hear his voice and then you see him, and it explains everything. But yeah, speaking of the private property.
Yeah. So he apparently, like, the first thing he wants to do before he goes to school, and also it's probably like 7:30 in the morning.
Yeah, exactly. So he woke up at 6:30 and went, I'm going to destroy Doc's house.
He goes there. So clearly he's done this before because he knows all the equipment's there. He goes in, gets his guitar, and takes the amplifier and basically is like, I'm gonna melt my skull. Yeah, exactly. In the film, you hear the humming of the sub. And so, I watched it and I was Googling, because in the movie he plays a chord and then flies back. And I'm like, how much sound would actually have to be produced to cause a human body to move back?
That's a good question. I didn't look at that.
Well, one thing is you're going to go deaf before you...
That was what I was thinking. The entire movie, I was like, after that happened, it should have been...
Yeah.
Marty. I'm just mouthing. Like, the entire movie, like, if it was loud enough to push him back, like... He would have been deaf. The movie would have been ruined.
Yeah, exactly. And so that would have been funny if they added like little things throughout of like, Marty, we gotta do this, and he's like, what? But yeah, so he plays the chord, flies back, and then the phone rings, which I think is kind of weird. So let's talk about that for a second. So Doc calls his own house. Okay, so where is he calling from?
Yeah, maybe his van.
I guess, I don't know,
but he doesn't have the money for a cell phone.
But he calls his own house, knowing that Marty was going to be there.
Yeah, maybe the night before they discussed it. Where
it could have been, yeah.
Where he was like, hiding from his parents and being like, Doc, so I really want to jam out tomorrow morning. And he's like, show up in my house at 6:30.
Yeah, so the phone rings, he answers it, and he goes, Marty! He's like, what? And then they're talking, and I don't really remember what they were talking about, but then all the clocks go off.
Yeah, and it's all this noise.
Yeah.
Like, if you have anxiety and too much is going on, it freaks you out. Overstimulation. He has to, like, plug his ear while he's on the phone.
Yeah. And then they talk, and then he's like, is that my clocks?
My experiment worked!
Yeah, they're exactly 25 minutes late. He goes, wait, so you're telling me that it's whatever time it was?
Yeah, like 8:30.
8:30? He goes, precisely! You know what that means?
I'm late for school.
Dun, 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 dun,
now, this is a great time, I think, to talk about the soundtrack of the movie, because this goes into the first song that was by Huey Lewis and the News.
Yes.
So, big time for them, obviously, because it was the 80s. But my favorite thing about this movie is they actually involved Huey Lewis in one of the scenes. So, a little bit farther down the line, but maybe let's pause that.
We'll get to that. It's great spot.
But so he leaves the garage, and apparently, that's the small town of Hill Valley, which is where it takes place.
Fun fact, Gremlins was also set in that valley. Yeah, like the same set for Gremlins was also used. So like, can you imagine Marty like skating away from all these Marty, my experiment, it failed. The Bongoys are changing.
Hey, look, that one's got a cute little stripe on its head.
Doc, are you telling me that there are gremlins? It fell in the water. Marty, we need to go back in time and change that. No, but one thing, what's great about the soundtrack is I can't think of many movies where for some people the soundtrack might be better than the movie. Like there might be some people that are like, I like the soundtrack to Back to the Future more than Back to the Future.
That's fair, yeah.
Because it's great and it works. Like for a lot of movies, they'll throw in a song and it's like, this doesn't feel like it works. But for the time with Back to the Future and Power of Love, like it's great.
Well, they do a really interesting thing, which I feel like is not super common nowadays, where Huey Lewis actually wrote a song specifically for that movie.
I miss that.
Called Back in Time. But I just feel like that's not something that you see nowadays, is hiring, like, let's say, Ed Sheeran.
Yeah.
And it's like, Ed Sheeran, I need you to write a song for this romantic comedy with Brad Pitt and Sandra Bullock. Like, that's just not something you typically see.
The last time I could think of that is them being like, yo, Eminem, can you do Venom? And it would just be like, Venom! Like, that's the last song I think where it's like,
that's fair,
we need a tie-in for our Marvel properties. So let's get Eminem to just go, Venom! And they're like, gold, cut, frame. Exactly. Did I just compare Venom to Back to the Future? Yes, I did. Guess which movie's better? Back to the Future. Fight me on that.
That's true. I would absolutely agree with that. So he leaves the garage, right? He's leaving the garage, and this is what I love about this movie, is how many subtle crimes are committed without even knowing. So he has a skateboard, right? And he immediately leaves the lot and then just grabs the first car and takes off.
100%.
And so he's behind the car. For the audio listeners, I'm using my hands. But so he's behind the car. He's holding on to it. He's riding with his skateboard. So let me ask you a question. Let's say you're driving, okay? You're driving down the road on your way to work, you have a cup of coffee, you're having a great day.
I'm pantomiming driving if you're just hearing this.
And you see this kid on a skateboard attached to the back. What is your reaction? Because it's like you can't hit the brakes.
I'm going to brake check him. I'm going to brake check him because I'm going to be like, third time today? Seriously? Everybody thinks their body will fly. You know what? I'm gonna brake check him because the guy looks back like, oh, that's weird. Some teenagers, whatever.
He looks back and goes, ugh.
And Marty does like
driving.
A little polite way of like, yeah, man, I just need to go to school. But they don't know each other. Like, there's no like that guy doesn't come back and go, Marty, you rode on my truck. I think Doc's saying something. Like, he doesn't come back. So, and he just goes to different things. And there's like a cop car that drives by. It's like, if this movie was set in the South, like, Marty would have been shot. Like, this would have turned into like a drama.
Absolutely. Yeah, it would have been like a comedy. What do they call it? Tragic comedy?
Yeah, tragic comedy.
Yeah.
Have that happen in the rest of the movie is Doc try to find a new Marty.
Where's Marty?
Yeah. Oh my god, how many Martys do you think Doc has gone through?
Oh, God.
like he's like, I messed that one up.
That'd be funny if it was like, Steve, get the... Marty.
Exactly.
Wait, Doc, who's Steve?
Don't look in my backyard. There's just all these different things for Marty. Just like, that Marty, he touched plutonium and
Can you
lost his
imagine
arms.
if his dog Einstein used to be a Marty, that like a experiment gone wrong?
Just, Marty, I was tired with the other Marty. Marty 3. You're Marty 4, right?
You sound like Rick.
Morty.
Yeah, from Rick and Morty.
Morty.
That's actually, I don't know if, probably everybody knows this, but Rick and Morty was inspired by Back to the Future, because it's like an old weird man and a younger kid, but it's like their family. I like Back to the Future more because it's like, their friendship is weird too. It's like,
it is.
Where did they meet? How did they meet? Like, not to jump ahead too far, but Marty leaves his house at like 1 o'clock in the morning. Like, this isn't the first time that he's done this.
Right.
But his parents don't care about him at all. So it's like, if he's like, Mom, Dad, I've been hanging out with the scientists. They're like, oh yeah, that's good.
Also something, and we'll come back to this, but the age gap is important to call out, because so Marty in the movie, although Michael J. Fox I think was like 22, 23 when it was filmed, in the movie he's going into the future at the very end, and he kind of clarifies his age, because Doc says I'm going 30 years in the future, and he goes, oh, okay, so I'm probably like 47.
Right.
So he's 17.
Right.
So a 17-year-old kid hanging out with probably a 40-something mad scientist, like, if he's not going to tell his mom that he's taking Lorraine to the lake, remember that? Like, he doesn't tell her he's going with the boys. But it's okay for him to hang out with an old crazy scientist.
Yeah, that's weird.
That seems kind of weird. But so back to the plot. So takes the car, goes to school. This is another topic I wanted to bring up. Is he gets there and he sees his girlfriend, and she goes, Marty, don't go that way. Strickland's looking for you. Who's the principal, and she says, if he finds you, this will be your 4th tardy. Like, what is he doing from an academic standpoint? Does he just, like, not show up to school?
Probably not. And it's like, I don't know about what your high school situation was like, but 4 tardies, that sounds like suspension. Like, if you're just not showing up that many times. But Strickland's the type of guy where if someone blinks weird, he's, like, suspended.
Got a real attitude problem, McFly. You're a slacker.
Like, great character actor.
Did you just breathe on me? Because you're done.
Yeah, great. He's a great character actor, because if I see him, I just think Strickland. Like, just like, you're a fool, Marty. Just like throwing out suspensions for anybody. But yeah, so Strickland catches him.
Yeah, and so not to tangent too much, but so Strickland, and I don't know the actor's name.
I don't either.
I'll have to look up. But he was the, and you know I love this movie. He was the, I think, captain or like command lead in Top Gun.
Oh.
For the first aircraft carrier that Tom Cruise was on before they go to the Top Gun school.
Was he also a jerk?
Yeah, he's a huge asshole.
That's
just that angry bald head
that turns red. I bet like
he also gets into everyone's face.
Just
he's just like right
nose
there
to
the
nose.
whole time.
Which is like, imagine being his agent. Yeah, I got another role for you. Yeah, he's angry. It's an angry role. I was gonna give you one where you were gonna play like a therapist, but you just be screaming in their face.
Can you imagine if they're like they shot that scene where he gets into his face and they're like, you know, I like that, but closer.
Yeah,
Get
closer.
Closer.
It's the 1980s. Get closer.
As you can. Yeah.
He needs to smell the spaghetti that you had for lunch.
He perfected that move, though.
Oh, yeah, no, 100%. Which, one thing to know, actually, about Michael J. Fox in this movie is he was also filming Family Ties at the time.
Oh, yeah.
And there was a different actor that got cast as a role of Marty, but everybody on set was like, this guy's not working for the role.
Oh, that's right. Who was that guy?
Eric Stoltz.
Was it Eric Stoltz?
Yeah.
I thought it was the guy from Hot Tub Time Machine.
No, it's Eric Stoltz.
Who am I thinking of?
I don't know.
The lead guy from Hot Tub Time Machine?
Adam Scott?
Adam Scott.
Okay.
Okay,
whatever.
Cut.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. But no, so everybody was like, this guy is not good. He's not working. And so they were like, Hail Mary time. Let's see if we can get Michael J. Fox. And they did.
Wow.
But so Michael J. Fox was filming Back to the Future and Family Ties. And supposedly he would get like 3 hours of sleep in his car.
Jesus.
Because he was like, yeah, I'm already contractually obligated for Family Ties, but I really want to do this Back to the Future program.
Yeah.
So like that, I think that's really hard work, and you can see it. Like that's the thing. Like anytime, because some people bring this up, they're like, we remake Back to the Future. You can't because of the chemistry. Like every person in this movie has great chemistry. Like, they work so well together. And a lot of them are character actors where they went on to do specific types of things, like the guy that plays Strickland.
Yeah, and the thing, too, and you'll see this in a lot of movies, as I'm sure we're all familiar with, is the sequel is never as good as the original. In very few cases, like, maybe this is a hot take, I think Terminator 2 is better than the first one.
I think Terminator's better than Terminator 2. We'll talk about that later. We're gonna fight. Yeah, we're gonna fight after this. We're gonna cut the camera. We're gonna put on we're gonna do bare knuckle boxing in this room. There's gonna be blood.
So, and let me explain kind of why. So, like, it just doesn't have the same feel as the first one, and I think a perfect example of that is The Hangover.
Yeah.
But here's the issue that people run into is it's like, let me just dangle $500 million, which is what Hangover 2 grossed.
Jeez.
Obviously, the first one was better. They fucked around and did a third one.
Yeah, I know.
That's insane.
And it wasn't as good as any of them. Like,
no, I don't even remember.
I went and saw it in theaters, and no one laughed. Like, it was, I went and saw it in theaters.
That's the equivalent of bombing at stand-up comedy.
I know, and the thing about the third one is everybody was doing something. Like, I know we're literally talking about The Hangover, what we're supposed to be talking about. It's all connected, okay? You're going to get used to this. But with The Hangover 3, everybody was doing something. Like, Bradley Cooper was getting, like, Silver Linings Playbook.
Oh, yeah.
He was going...
Was that around when he did Moneyball?
Yes, he was doing Moneyball. He was doing...
No, that's Brad Pitt.
That is Brad Pitt, yeah. all white people look the same. No, but so Bradley Cooper was doing his thing. Zach Galifianakis was doing, like, FX series. Like, he was doing his thing. Ed Helms had The Office.
Murdering the Nardoc.
So they all were doing, like, they're like, yeah, back to, like, Hangover was fun, but, like, now I'm on a TV series. And they went, you don't understand. We need you. And so you watch that movie and no one wants to be there. Like, you watch certain things and they're just checked out. Like, there's nothing behind the eyes. They could be smiling. There's nothing here. They're thinking about what sandwich they're going to get for lunch.
Yeah.
Like, but that's the thing about Back to the Future is everybody wants to be there. Everybody wants to work on this. Like,
true.
After the scene with Strickland, that's when he goes outside and he's hanging out with her. Right?
Yeah. So back to the plot. So his girlfriend pulls him away, but then they walk through the school and he gets caught, and then he, writes him a tardy slip, and that's when he, like, kind of mentions his father, which I think is, like, kind of a fucked up thing to say to a kid.
Oh, yeah, no, you're a slacker, just like your father.
Yeah, I'm like, it's like, that's good. Like, what, like, how much does he know about his previous life? Like, what if his dad died and he just, like, drops that line?
Oh, he wouldn't care. Strickland's the type of guy where he's like, your dad had cancer, I feel bad for the cancer.
Like, yeah, he was intense. He was really intense.
He was really intense. One great thing, though, is when I think about it, they could have easily been like, oh, well, we need a scene where he's, like, in class. Like, they don't have any scenes where he's in class because it pulls away from everything.
He is in the school a lot, though.
That's true.
And both movies, the first two, yeah.
That's true. One thing that I thought was funny that I caught as an adult that I actually had to pause is, and again, stupid Czar kid, didn't get any. This was just already funny movie. So when they go outside and they're hanging out, on the marquee in the back, it says XXX, like, dirty film.
Oh.
Like, dirty films. Like, that's how it's supposed to show, like, Hill Valley is, like, there's graffiti, like, XXX dirty films. Yeah, I paused it because I was like, there's no way that's in a PG movie. And then I looked and I was like, it's in this PG movie, which this is one of the last movies to be PG besides Indiana Jones, Temple of Doom, and Gremlins. Wow. Because the MPAA was like, kids probably shouldn't see a guy get his heart ripped out. And them eating monkey brains. And then in Gremlins, if you've seen Gremlins, you know, kids probably shouldn't see little monsters be torn to shreds.
No, probably
on camera. So, no. I don't know why, but yeah, they're sitting there, they're talking about getting the truck, and I really love when he's like, man, I'm starting to sound like my father.
Yeah. That was a good line because the actor that played Marty's dad, this is another fun fact, was Crispin Glover.
Yep.
And so one thing I was really curious about is because Crispin Glover did, like, an insane job. Like, he was like the scene where he's laughing, where he's like,
please, we'll get to that.
So bad.
I don't like covering my face, but we'll get to that.
But so Crispin Glover, this is what I found really interesting. When they filmed that movie, so keep in mind, Michael J. Fox was 20, 22, 23, right around there. Yep. Crispin Glover was 20.
Which is crazy.
20 years old. So he was 3 years younger than the son that he was supposed to be the father of.
But he plays it like an old man.
Like a fucking perfect old man.
He does it great as an old man, but I really do like that line of, I'm starting to sound like my dad, because that gets brought up later in the movie.
It does, yeah.
But I don't know why, but I always laugh at the old lady that's like, save the clock tower! And she's just shaking, because they're about to kiss.
Yeah.
And she's just shaking a can of quarters in his face. Save the clock tower!
Save the clock tower! Save the clock tower!
And he's like, alright lady, if you'll shut you up, here's 25 cents.
Yeah.
It does.
And then what's funny is they go to kiss again, and then then her dad's like, get in the car!
Yeah, which is great. And then, so, as that happens, that's the power of love kicks back in, which is just, again, it's perfect. And in a lot of movies, kicking back in the song and be like, why are they doing this? But like, it's such a great moment.
Yeah.
But what I also love, the transition of him riding the skateboard, and then song still playing, but then when he sees that the truck is totaled, song cuts.
Yeah.
The car, Dad.
Marty sees the truck, and he goes, truck's totaled, or something like that.
Yeah.
And he walks in, and he sees Biff. Oh, God. Biff is America's bully.
It's a really interesting scene because I was trying to, like, emotionally figure out, like, how I would feel in that situation.
Yeah.
Because, like, you're watching your dad get shit on.
Completely. And when you watch the movie, it's throughout his entire life.
Oh, yeah.
Like, in preschool, Biff probably, like, punched him in the face for some baseball cards. like throughout his, and just the knocking on the head, because he taps on his head, he's like, hello, think McFly.
Hello, anybody home?
It hurts. And then him grabbing his tie and pulling him in. Yeah, exactly. That, I literally, like, as a kid, it was like, oh, he's just so mean to him. But as an adult, I'm like, this guy's getting, like, destroyed.
He's getting, like, abused.
Yeah, he's getting 100% abused. And just him being like, I need my car washed because I gotta go do this. And him having to, like, do his work for him.
Well, the thing, too, that one thing to point out is, so basically what happened is he got into a car accident in a car that he was borrowing from Marty's dad. Gets it towed, come back, and the first thing is and it's just such a funny, like, line that gets dropped, because he's like, yeah, you didn't tell me about the blind spot in your car. And then George goes, I've driven that car, Biff, and I've never seen a blind spot. And he goes, really? Because I spilled beer all over my new suit. And as a kid, I was like, oh, that sucks. But as an adult, I'm like, wait, were you drinking and driving?
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, it's one of those lines where I feel like if the MPAA saw that, they'd be like, no, you gotta scrap it. You gotta cut it. I mean, even with Stranger Things for Netflix, like, they got a bunch of notes about smoking, which is so weird. Yeah, it's so weird to think, like, people are like, that shouldn't exist. It's like right around that time, it was like, yeah, drinking and driving, like, people would be like, I need a couple road sodas.
Yeah, road soda is a term I heard for the first time from, like, my grandparents. It's like,
God.
What?
It's like, you might as well have a paper bag at that point.
Yeah. So basically that's your first introduction to Biff, and, like, the scene...
And McFly. George McFly.
Well, no... Yeah. So basically how the scene kind of wraps up is he walks into his kitchen and he's like, all you got for me is light beer? And he takes a beer and then he looks at Marty, Michael J. Fox.
Yeah.
And he's like, what are you looking at, butthead?
What are you looking at, butthead?
Which he actually improvised that line of butthead.
Wow.
Like that, and there's a tree line that always makes me laugh in the second one.
Yeah.
But no, like, Marty's not taking crap. Like, literally looks him down.
Yeah, he's just, like, taking it all in, and then he looks at him and he goes, say hi to your mom for me.
Oh, God.
And
knowing how some of the stuff happens, it's like, wow,
terrible.
Why does Lorraine drink? Why does she smoke? Like,
yeah.
Oh, God, she's probably going on a bunch of business trips.
It's really bad. But then Marty basically confronts his dad and is like, Dad, the car. And
I know, the car. But Biff just excuses. Just so many excuses.
Really bad.
Just like, if the man could be broken, he'd be broken. Like, he'd just fly off in the ether.
Yeah, it's pretty rough. It's really hard to not, like, feel really bad for that character, because it's like you obviously see Marty as this, like, shining star, even if I think it towards the beginning of the film.
Yeah.
But you have all these other characters that are so powerful, like how much you just immediately hate Biff. You hate him completely.
Yeah.
And then you feel so bad for his dad because of like how he acts.
Yeah.
But then the next scene, aren't they all at dinner?
Yes.
Yeah.
One thing to know about the scene that I learned is that Lorraine and George McFly, that those actors had to be in makeup for over 3.5 hours in order to look old. Because it really is like a stark difference. Like you see both of them and then they look so much younger. It's like, yeah, that takes 3.5 hours of makeup, like just piled on, especially the mom.
Yeah.
Like just, oh God, the dinner scene. Like one of the scariest movies I've seen is Hereditary. There's a dinner scene where they're screaming about a dead relative and pointing fingers, and it makes me uncomfortable. This scene in Back to the Future, way more uncomfortable.
It's like just a clear, like, I mean, 1985, and the dad's just watching TV, and the mom's trying to talk about her past while she's shoveling vodka into her throat. Ugh. And I just love when she's trying to talk to the husband, and he's like just over there watching TV doing that laugh.
I can't stand that laugh. Like it's the type of laugh where it starts and stops.
Give your best impression.
And I just want to say shut up. Like
so
just
bad.
Please
it's
stop
really
laughing.
Good, though.
Oh no, it's good. It's so good at just making everybody just be like, can this man shut up? Like, how did you ever have kids?
Well, so his wife is trying to like tell her kids the story of how they met.
Yeah.
And he's like over here like watching the TV, and she's like, well, wasn't that right, George? And he goes, what, Lorraine?
Was it, George? Bird watching?
What, Lorraine? What?
And it's a rerun.
Oh, yeah.
It's that.
Do you know what show they were watching?
Oh. I can't remember.
I have no idea.
But
it's something black and white.
Just the fact that he's watching a rerun. Like, it's something he's already seen before, and he's laughing the same exact way. And I don't know why, but I even wrote it down in my notes. Uncle Jailbird Joey, I don't know what it is about it. Maybe it's the cake that Lorraine throws a cake on the table.
Sheet cake.
And
just the sound of the metal sheet just going tink.
Your Uncle Joey didn't make parole again.
A cheap sheet cake, and it's got this bird that's trying to fly out of a cage, and it was just like...
Honestly, like, okay, if I was their uncle, that's kind of fucked. Like,
no, 100%.
If I look at the cake and I'd go... I'm reformed. What? Are you serious?
Seriously? Like, everyone's going to call me Uncle Jailbird Joey?
Yeah, it's kind of a terrible cake to do.
Oh, yeah, no. And the reason why they talk about the prom is because...
The story that
the story is because Marty mentions his girlfriend, and she's like, I don't like that girl. She's just... And it's just like... Oh, everything is so dysfunctional. Like the dad's like the brother's a pizza driver.
Dad is totally
checked out. He's gone.
He's gone.
He might as well not be there. And the mom, like, she does such a good job because she's just chain smoking mom and drinking. And there's one little part of the scene that impacted me a ton when I watched it the other night. It's when she's looking down and she said, "That's how I loved your father." And she's not... It's such a good performance because she's not looking at him, and she says that, and there's so much sadness in it that I was watching it and I was like, this is a horror movie. Like, this is my nightmare. Like, please put on The Exorcist and I'll sleep to it. If you put this scene on, I'm going to wake up and start crying because this is my nightmare, because he starts laughing and they stop what they're doing and they literally look at him like, Mom, when are you going to divorce him? When are you going to leave him? When are you going to leave him, Mom? When are you going to leave him?
You have this totally dysfunctional family, has this meal together, right?
What were they eating? It was like McDonald's.
I don't know.
And then it's just something cheap, like a frozen really dinner. Cheap. Like, it's still like Marty bites into it and there's just like ice on it.
Oh, God. So then it cuts to Marty in bed asleep and his phone rings.
Yeah.
Right, it's midnight and it's Doc calling him again.
Marty.
Marty, you didn't fall asleep, did you? And he goes, no, wakes up, gets a call, and is going to meet him at the Twin Pine Mall, which is the first time you're going to get introduced to Doc. But a fun fact that I was going to share is, so the mall is called Twin Pine Mall.
Yes.
And in the next scene or so, when he goes to the past, with the time machine, he runs over a pine tree that was owned, like the guy owned the property that the mall was in that he sold to. Yeah. And ran over one pine. So when you go back at the end of the movie, it's not called Twin Pine Mall. It's called Lone Pine Mall.
That's so cool.
it's really cool how many like subtle differences because of like what Marty did while he was in 1955
and how it impacted it, like
right, how it changed. Yeah, and that's like what Doc says towards the end of the movie. The entire time he's like, "You could ruin the space-time continuum," and it's like, calm down. Like, we're gonna change the name of a mall, basically.
Yeah, exactly. That's not that impactful. I didn't know that. So that's really, really cool.
It's really interesting. So he rides his skateboard to the mall, and I really like this scene because it just looks like any small town mall. Like,
oh yeah, it looks like one of our malls.
It does, yeah. Middle of the night, like parking lot's empty, and you just see this big, giant, like work truck. Like,
yeah, it's like, where did he get that? Like, hey, sir, I need a truck. Sure, Mister. I don't know how to say your name. What time? 1 o'clock in the morning. Nothing weird about that. There's smoke coming under your doors.
Yeah, so Marty rolls up, he's got the video camera, and he sees Doc's dog, Einstein, right? And then the scene is the doors opening on this truck.
Such a great entrance, by the way.
What's so weird, though, is all the steam or, like, vapor that comes out of, like, where... Like,
what if Doc's super high? Like, it's literally like Snoop Dogg. Like, it's just like all this weed smoke is coming out. But his hair is just everywhere.
Yeah.
And he's just got like he just looks bug-eyed.
He does, yeah.
His outfit is all white. Like, Christopher Lloyd nails this role. And he was 42 in this movie.
Wow.
He was 42, but he looks like he's 90.
The funny thing, too, is like, so this is something that I noticed, which was, I feel like, kind of subtle. But so... the time machine, the DeLorean, backs out of the truck because that's where it was being stored.
Yeah.
And if you look at the license plate, it says out of time.
That's so cool.
And I was like, okay, that's really sick that they added that. But like, in actuality, did he go to like the DMV website?
Oh, yeah, he did.
It's like, I built a time machine. I need a license plate for my car.
Can you make it out of time?
It's like, but then he's like, keeping it really on the down low about everything else, but I'm gonna like publicly record the fact that I got this special license plate for a time machine.
Right? If that car's missing, it's like, what is there any? It says out of time. It's like, well, that's not hard to find. Like, obviously, like it says out of time. Like he's going back to
You're
back
not
in time.
gonna hide from anyone.
No. How many cars do you think in the 1980s saw that and went, bro? I need my license plate to say out of time. Like, I bet if I go 88 miles per hour with a road soda, I can go back in time. Don't do that. I'm kidding.
Probably a lot of people did that.
So
I would
many
not
people.
be surprised.
No, so he comes out of the car with his clipboard and he goes over everything about the DeLorean, the speed. One thing I always found interesting, even as a kid, is when Doc he's pressing in the buttons and he goes, even if you want to go before Christ. And it's just like, that, what?
It was a weird line to drop. Yeah, it was like 00 December 25th, like no year.
Right.
It's really weird. So
you would ruin everything. You show up in a DeLorean, they'd be like, you know what? I don't think religion's for me. Like their heads would explode. They'd be like,
yeah, basically. Well, so this is an interesting thing that I want your opinion on. So
sure.
Basically, what he tries to show Marty to record on like the camera. Basically, the first time the time machine is being used. So he puts Einstein in the car. He shows him the stopwatch.
I got so scared.
I know. What if the dog died?
I know. Like, what if this
really
was just him just drunk and he's like, oh, put Einstein in the car or whatever, and then it just crashes and the Libyans show up.
It doesn't hit 88 miles an hour, flies into the mall.
And then the Libyans show up and he's like, I didn't plan on this happening, Marty. Here's a note, and I need you to go to the police straight seat.
So he puts Einstein in the car, has the stopwatch, shows Marty, gets it on the camera.
He also has the speedometer to make it go 88 miles per hour.
Yeah, he has a remote control thing. And for me, so I'm a kid, right? I'm watching the movie, and I'm like, oh my god, I want a car that's also a remote control car.
Yes.
But I was like, I'm such an idiot. They just gave him this device, and then his stunt double probably just drove the car.
Oh yeah, 100%.
It's so obvious.
Yeah.
So he revs the car, gets up to 80 miles an hour, sends Einstein, I think it was back in time, a minute or something like that.
Is that where he says the line, though? Say it. Go
when
for it.
When this baby gets up to 88 miles an hour.
You're gonna see some serious shit.
As a kid, it was just like, I can't believe you said that. You're allowed to say that? This is PG? What? The way he says it, too, is so good.
Yeah.
And when it does go back in time, I love the flames that shoot out in between their legs.
Let's talk about that for a second, because Doc, he's a psychopath.
Oh, he's 100%.
Because Marty's filming this car flying at him at 80 miles an hour, and Marty tries to get out of the way.
I love that.
And he grabs him
and moves him closer.
Like, what if it didn't work?
Oh, then Marty's dead. Like, the movie ends.
It's a double homicide suicide in this mall with a dog that's
Can you imagine the Libyans show up and there's just a dead teenager, the dead old man that you wanted to kill, and just a dog in a car?
What do? Do you like...
You take the plutonium and you don't tell anybody. It's blood buddy.
So, where are we at? So basically
it goes back in time.
Right.
The car goes back in time.
Einstein goes back in time. So this is the plot hole that I was confused about. So all of a sudden, after a minute passes, the time machine just reappears.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to get into like time travel, and because I feel like that's also potential. Like the Avengers talked about it a little bit.
Yeah.
They were like, yeah, they didn't do time traveling correctly. So
yeah,
I'm not even
can
gonna...
you?
No,
I
don't
like.
think so.
I mean, even in the Terminator movies, like if you've seen a majority of the Terminator movies, nothing adds up. Like time is an illusion.
Well,
like,
the thing too is, it's like, this was my thought process. It's like, okay, let's say you go back in time a minute, you wouldn't catch up.
No,
because time would just like continue.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm like, it's because like in theory, like okay, if Marty goes back in time, wouldn't at some point after that time had elapsed, he would just reappear in the time machine? Because that's what Einstein did.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I was like, I was writing my notes and I'm like, ah.
Right. It's literally I kind of imagine that the writer and director would go, "Hello, we created Back to the Future. Don't think about it.
Yeah.
Don't think about
Just enjoy it for what it is. Hold your questions till the end. We're not going to answer your questions.
Don't dissect this movie. Don't show it in schools. This is not an example. Don't think about it. Look at me. Don't think about it." Yeah. Like, that's what I think. It's just like, it's the type of movie where people are like, yeah, it's fun. Don't think about it.
Well, the other thing too is the car comes back. Einstein's in it, right?
He's fine.
And it's covered in ice.
Yeah, because he touches it. He's like, "What is it hot?" He's like, "No, it's cold.
Yeah,
it's freezing."
It's covered in ice. But any other time in any of the movies, when he travels through time, the DeLorean looks the same.
That's a really good point.
Like it's not covered in ice, so it's like in my brain, I'm like, either cover it in ice or leave it alone.
Actually, it probably should have been left alone, because in the other movies, that's true. Like, they'll come back and it's just like, it's just normal.
Well, I'm thinking of like the third one specifically. Yeah. He goes back to like Western times, and he's like driving through like the hilly area.
Alert. Okay.
Totally fine. Car's not covered in ice. But all of a sudden, just for that one scene with Einstein, covered in ice.
Yeah, again, the writers were probably like, don't think about it. Just don't
worry
think about it. So this is setting up everything. And he says, Christopher Lloyd says a line that I didn't think about for years, but him and his brother would say it randomly. Like, out of all the lines, I'm like, I don't remember that line. Do you want to say the line? It's where Marty's filming.
Yeah, so to tee up the scene, Doc is talking to Marty. He's explaining to him how it works. He shows him the flux capacitor.
Yes.
Which is in the back of the DeLorean, which makes time travel possible, is what he says.
Exactly.
But then he needs to go get more plutonium, and so he goes back, and he's like, "Doc, did you rip that off?" And he's like, "Of course I did.
Turn the camera off."
And he tells him that he basically made a deal with his Libyan terrorists that he was going to build them a bomb, but he just gave them, it was like a shoddy bombshell casing full of used pinball parts.
And he laughs maniacally when he says it. He thinks it's
insane.
hilarious.
It's kind of insane.
And Marty like puts down the camera like, "Dude, you're going to get killed."
I feel like I would have that moment as him of like, what am I doing with my life?
Right. I'm supposed to go to the lake tomorrow, and now I'm going to end up on the news.
Yeah, so he runs into the truck, gets more plutonium, they load it into the car, and then it's kind of like, as a kid, the scene really scared me, because it goes from like, oh my god, this guy figured out time travel, to like, there's an actual group of terrorists after him, and so Marty's filming him, and he just stops, and he looks off in the distance, and he goes,
"Found me, I don't know how, but they found me."
And Marty's like, who? And he goes, "The Libyans!" And he points, and you just see this van
with a spotlight, like, looking for him.
Yeah.
And guns cocked.
Guys, it comes out of the sunroof of the van with a very clearly AK-47 PG movie.
Yes,
keep in mind.
exactly, and an RPG.
Well, yeah, that's
later
on. But he just starts unloading shots in a public, like, mall parking lot.
No cops around. No one hears it.
No one, yeah. And this is where I want to point out something, and I'd love your opinion on it.
Sure.
So throughout the entire movie, Biff is seen as, like, this villainous character, right?
Yeah.
Where... 15 minutes into the movie, you watch Doc literally get gunned down by terrorists.
That's true.
And they're not, like...
They're not the bad guys? Like, people are...
No, it's this one guy that talks mean to this person, not this group.
Bullies him, and he's the problem, not the people that gun down Doc. Like, take the movie from here to here.
Yeah. Also, I want to talk about Marty's flight or fight response, because I'm going to put myself in his shoes. I watch what I think is like my friend or Doc or whatever he is to him gets gunned down, shot in front of me, and then the van pulls around in front of Marty. He points the gun at him, and then it jams. But Marty just is standing there.
Yeah, he doesn't move.
He's like, I'm gonna die.
He like closes his eyes and he's like, all right, God.
I'm literally gonna die.
All right, Jesus.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Then it jams. So if I'm in that situation, right, I would probably just start crying.
Oh, yeah, no.
I would just collapse on the ground and just pass out.
You would see pee running down my leg. Like, it should have been a shot of just like urine flowing down his pants. Like, maybe it's like, maybe I could go back in time and my pants will be dry.
Oh my God. So he runs away, gets in the DeLorean, starts basically like a movie car chase scene.
Yeah, and then this is when by the way, the music kicks in, not the Huey Lewis in the news.
Right.
The bum 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 bum. Yeah, and it goes, and so he's driving and he's weaving in and out.
It was a really cool chase scene, I think, especially for like a van. But as you mentioned before, at the very end, he pulls out this like RPG.
Yeah, bazooka. He pulls out a bazooka and he aims it at the car with a teenager in it.
Yeah.
But I forgot, what's the line when he's like, let me see if you bastards can go like...
Can you do 90?
Can you do 90? Yeah, that's such a sick line. Like, he said that and I was just like, I literally... Because we're taking notes for this movie.
Yeah.
But there's still like the inner kid part of me that's like, oh my gosh, Marty, you can do it.
Marty,
do it. He said a bad word too. Like, and then it's just... the effects of the car going back in time where it's like whoosh, 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 and it just takes off.
Yeah. And then so to basically kind of take a step back, when Doc was showing him the DeLorean for the first time, he put in the date 1950, I think it was November 25th or something like that, 1955. And he says, this was the year that I, like, basically wrote and created the flux capacitor. He was like, I was hanging a clock in my bathroom, I slipped and fell. Who knows what he was actually doing?
I mean, honestly, like...
he could have been doing anything.
Anything. And it's just like, yeah, I slipped and fell and hit my head. Or maybe he was, like, just watching TV, just lazy, and he's just like, yeah, slipped, fell, hit my... Einstein! Grab me another beer. Just super lazy, just being like, this tastes good. Let me take some LSD. It slipped, fell. Or maybe he's doing coke, and he's just like, yeah, so I fell, and I hit my head, and I needed to come up with a flux. That's Einstein, what do you think?
He does talk to those paintings in his house.
That's so that part we're gonna get there, but I just love the dedication of just looking at it, like just like
staring at a painting, yelling at it.
How am I going to generate that kind of power?
Yeah, exactly. So now we've officially gone back in time.
Yep. So for me as a kid, that first scene scared the shit out of me. Because the first thing he does is he runs into a scarecrow.
Oh my God.
Hits the hood, windshield, and then flies into a barn. Right?
Yeah.
Huge thing. And so...
By the way, he's wearing a radiation suit. This is super important. This is going to come back later on in the movie also.
Yeah.
But he's wearing a radiation suit that makes him look like an alien.
Yeah. Yeah. And so... obviously the people who own like the barn or house come outside and they're like, what the hell?
Yeah, what is going on?
But here's another thing that I want to talk about for a second, and this is where I'm just going to be the guy that points out all the plot holes.
Go for it.
So the car flies in like hood first, right, into the barn. And then the scene happens where the homeowner comes out with a shotgun, and he's like,
That you mutated son of a bitch!
because they think he's an alien.
Yeah.
Because the kid was reading a comic book, and it looks just like Marty in a radiation suit.
The comic book cover is so cool to me. Like, that would be such a cool poster. Because, yeah, he points to it, and he's just like, the alien is here. But Marty's, like, waving his hands, like, yo, I'm not an alien. But he's trying to pull the flap up.
Classic Alien, right? To say I'm not an alien.
Oh, yeah.
And then the kid's like, he's already mutated into human form.
So good.
Eat them! And then just shoots the shotgun.
Keeps trying to kill him.
Yeah, so this is where I think, like, I don't know what exactly happened in the barn, because then the time machine flies out in the same direction. So somehow he, like,
within seconds,
popped that shit into reverse, whipped it around, and then flew out of the barn. And then that's where he runs over the pine tree to make it Lone Pine.
What's the line that he says? Like,
oh yeah, my pines!
As this mailbox explodes,
because he shoots it. With
he missed he missed the car and hit his mailbox.
Yeah.
How sad is that to be like, Lauren, man, I missed the shot. Now I gotta walk 20 miles to get my mail.
Yeah, and I, they never come back to that family or that barn. Like, what effect did Marty have on them?
Oh, huge effect.
There was aliens in my barn.
Like, they're now conspiracy theorists.
Tell me, how did they end up all drawing the same thing?
He's altered their life for forever.
They have a podcast now where they're talking about Marty and being like, I swear I saw them.
Yeah. So then the next scene is it's daytime. Marty's like flying through this like kind of deserted highway basically. And this is where reality kind of hits him because he's just sitting there panting. He's like, it's a dream. It's a really bad dream. It's a dream. And then the car dies.
That part I forgot about.
Yeah.
Like, because I was like, what happened with the car? And then his car dying and having to move it. For some reason, I completely forgot that he had to walk all the way to town. Well,
yeah, this scene I like rewinded it like probably 20 times. So this car pulls up to like Marty because he's trying to like hitch a ride, and the wife in the car like yells something.
Yeah, she's like, "Drive faster, Harry! Drive faster!"
I don't know, but why was she freaking out?
That's a good question. Maybe because of his life preserver.
But everyone else was like just making fun of him for it.
Yeah, they were
she
fine.
Like literally shit her pants.
Yeah, she freaked out. So freaks out. Car goes off, and he moves the DeLorean behind a bunch of bushes.
Right.
And then he has to walk into town, which I forgot about.
Yeah, and this is another really great soundtrack choice because they play Mr. Sandman as he's walking through town.
So, with the Halloween movies, they play Mr. Sandman a lot. And so, hearing Mr. Sandman and seeing Marty with that crane shot, I just imagine Michael Myers coming out of nowhere and gutting him. Obviously, that didn't happen, but that's what I imagined. But talking about it, I really liked the way the place looked, like with the 1950s vibe.
It's so funny because like when I'm a kid, I'm like, where did they film that?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
As an adult, it's like on a set.
Exactly. It's it's a set where they're, just to remind you again, Gremlins were filmed there. But no, I really liked how the costuming, all of the way that the suits looked, the newspaper, and the way they look at Marty with his vest. All the jokes about the Navy and life preservers.
What's with the life preserver?
Like, it's something that I caught on now is all the 80s references Marty had. Like, we're about to get into it, but when he goes inside the shop.
Right, the cafe.
He goes inside the cafe and he's like, yeah, can I get a tab? And he's like, you have to order something first.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, like the drink. Like,
yeah. He's like, oh, can I get a Pepsi free? And he goes, if you want some, kid, you're going to pay for it.
Exactly. Those little references, like, as an adult, I'm like, oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
So he sits down at the cafe and he's like, just give me some without any sugar. And so he gives him black coffee.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's this really cool scene where Marty, like, leans over and scratches the back of his head, and then it pans to the person sitting next to him, which is his dad, George, doing the exact same hand motion.
Bye.
And then our favorite character enters stage left.
Biff. But one thing to note about that hair thing is it would have been really cool to see that scene where it's like, okay, so you have to be like this, and it's gotta be perfect. It's gotta
Can you imagine if I was like, you scratched twice, he scratched 3 times, cut, run it again.
Exactly, or one of them sneezes and goes, "Oh, for the love of God!" No, Biff walking in and saying, "McFly, I love the fact that they both look over at the same time."
True,
like
yeah.
that cut with that, it's so smooth and it's so cool, especially how Biff walks over and it's not to Marty, it's to George.
Yeah. And then the other interesting thing that I wanted to point out, I don't know if you saw this, but George, the dad, is eating cereal.
Yeah, that is something weird. Like,
I have never gone to a restaurant and ordered cereal.
I've never gone to a restaurant where they've offered cereal.
That's true. Yeah.
Like, I've never
been an option.
Yeah, I've never had some lady be like, "What can I get you, hon? Do you want some sugar smacks?"
Like, give Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
Yeah, I need a big bowl of Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
But so yeah, Biff walks over and basically again
humiliates him.
Humiliates him, abuses him.
Oh God! The part when he's like, "You got something on your shirt, McFly," and knocks his face
he
up.
Literally slaps
his face.
You're so gullible, McFly.
Basically, he's like, "You need to do my homework that was due, and I need to copy it." Blah blah blah. Biff leaves. And then one of the restaurant or cafe workers walks over.
So great.
And he's like, "Why do you let those guys pick on you?" And he's like, "Well, they're bigger than me."
Yeah, exactly. What are you talking about? That man outweighs me.
Yeah.
I'm literally 90 pounds.
You know how tall the actor is that played Biff?
No,
he's
but
big though. He's like 6'4", 6'3".
He is big, and something that they did camera-wise, this happens later on in the movie, but it's when Biff, of course, is sexist and creepy towards Lorraine, and Marty's like, "Hey!" And suddenly, like, they make Biff taller.
Oh, yeah.
Like, the camera goes up. Like, obviously he was big before, and then they just made him into, like, a giant, like the Juggernaut from X-Men. So... Which both are jerks, so it's perfect.
It's pretty funny.
But no, in the scene, obviously this is the first time we see it, and then I forgot what happens next.
So basically, after the cafe scene, Biff leaves. Then you see Mayor Goldie Wilson.
Yes. Oh yeah, when he's like,
Look at me. You think I'm gonna spend the rest of my life in this slop house?
But then he's trying to talk to his dad. He notices his dad leaves on his bike, and so he like yells after him. He's like,
yes,
"Dad, George,
yeah,
get on the bike."
That's him stopping for a second and be
Yeah.
like, I can't ruin my cover.
Yeah, so this is a great next scene because Marty catches up with his dad. And so if you think back to the beginning of the film where they were at dinner and the mom was basically like recapping how he had met her husband, George.
What was that, George, again? Bird watching? What, Lorraine?
Yeah, because the dad hits him with a car is like kind of the story that they're depicting.
Yes.
But in the scene, Marty realizes that his dad is up in a tree with binoculars watching a girl get undressed.
Creepy. He's
creepy.
He's like falling over and like licking his lips and like smiling. But I love his line of,
He's a peeping Tom.
And what's supposed to happen is George, the dad, is supposed to fall out of the tree from peeping and then get hit by the car, which ends up being Lorraine's dad, and then he gets taken in. But this is the huge movie plot twist.
Yes.
Where obviously in any situation, Marty's about to see his dad get hit by a car, shoves him out of the way,
and gets hit by the car.
And then it's kind of a throwaway line, but I love the dad because
Yes.
he yells. He's like, "Stella, one of those kids got in front of my car again!"
Which is like, he says again.
He says again.
How many kids has he hit with his truck? Like, again, Doc has bodies in the back. He's got bodies in the back.
He's got Marty 1, Marty 2,
Marty 3, like, they both have blood in their hands.
Yeah.
So then we cut, and it's all black.
And this is a really interesting scene to point out because
It really
we'll talk
is.
about this because
It gets brought up in part 2.
and part 3.
Yeah.
In every single Back to the Future, they use this similar scene where Marty essentially gets concussed,
Yes.
knocked unconscious, and then wakes up, assuming him going back in time or wherever he went
To his
in that
present
movie,
time.
was a dream.
Yes.
And so in this situation, also there's a lot of stuff we need to unpack here because his mom, well, not quotes, it is his mom.
I don't want to unpack this.
I know. Is like dabbing his head, and he's like, "Oh, I had this terrible dream," and then it's the same line in every movie.
Safe and sound now, back in good old 1955.
They're like, well, you're in good old 1955.
1955?
Yeah, and then he sits up, and so he's in his mom's bed, right? They're both basically the same age, because she's in high school.
Yep.
And okay, this is where, I'm curious for the audio listeners, anyone watching this, your take on this, because he doesn't have pants on.
He wakes up without his pants on, and I doubt that Lorraine's parents, aka Marty's grandparents, took his pants off.
Where are my pants?
He's in his underwear.
Yeah.
And his underwear says Calvin Klein.
And they're purple underwear?
They're purple underwear.
Yeah.
And
which, apparently blows Lorraine's mind.
And she's calling him Calvin.
Yeah, and she's like, I've never seen purple underwear, Calvin. And it's like, what do you do in that situation at what that's your mom?
It's your mom. And she's
do you just jump out of a window head first?
Oh yeah, I would. Cause I didn't know, as a kid, I was like, haha, funny movie. But as an adult, she is giving him bedroom eyes. She's like, if he makes a move, guess who's getting pregnant?
She is undressing him with her eyes.
It's great acting, especially when she reaches. She's like, "It's on your underwear," and he just throws himself back. He's like, "I'm not doing this."
He literally falls out of the bed.
Don't touch me. And then that's when she's like, "Oh no, my mom and dad, get your pants on." And he's like, "Why were my pants off to begin with?"
Yeah. So then the scene cuts to them basically at dinner with his grandparents.
I love the line, though. I didn't notice this. It's when they're walking down the stairs, and his grandma, Lorraine's mom, is like, "So when do you do back in port?"
Oh, right.
Since you're in the Coast Guard because of your life preserver. Right. I don't know why, but I had to point that out because that line made me laugh.
So the dinner party happens, and basically the major thing to take away is Lorraine tries to make a physical advance on him.
She tries to put her hand on his crotch.
As she's saying Marty should stay the night, and he can sleep in my bed. So
I'd vomit. I would throw up blood.
Yeah. So Marty basically is like, I'm out of here. This is insane. I don't know what's going on, and bolts for the door.
But one quick thing that I really like is when he's like, yeah, I have 2 TVs at home, and they're like, what do you mean you have 2 TVs? Oh, you must be rich. And then him being like,
and the mom is like, I was joking with you. Nobody has 2 TVs.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, I love this episode. It's a rerun.
It's a rerun.
But my favorite is he runs out of the room, and the dad's like, Lorraine, if you ever marry a kid like that, I'll disown you. that's so solid. But she's still looking at the door like, oh, please come back. It's just it makes me just. I hate using the word cringe because it makes me cringe. But no, so he goes to Doc's house.
Yep, so that's where he leaves. So he leaves, goes to Doc's house, and this is my personal favorite scene in the movie.
Yep.
Because he's basically trying to convince Doc of a couple things. 1, that he's from the future. Mm-hmm. 2, that his invention worked. And then 3, basically, I need you to do this for me.
Yeah.
Essentially. So he gets to his house, he knocks on the door, and I just love this scene so much because Christopher Lloyd does such a great job of looking like a literal mad scientist.
Oh, yeah.
Because he knocks on the door, and Doc whips open the door. He has this giant contraption,
which he never explains.
No, and he's like, "Don't say a word, don't say anything." Rips this guy into his home. Kind of weird.
Doesn't know who he is.
Right, just pulls a stranger into his house. Takes this sponge-like thing. Yeah, it's suctions it right to his forehead. Yeah. And he goes, I'm gonna read your thoughts.
Exactly.
And he's just trying to see, he's like, Doc, I'm scared, I don't know where I am.
You're a mailman, you're trying to sell me something. Which it makes me think, how many other people has he just ripped in?
Well, what's funny is he, at the beginning of it, you think it's actually working because he's like, you've traveled a great distance to come here. And Marty's like, Yes, I have.
Yes.
And then he goes, you're trying to sell me magazines.
No.
And he takes the thing off. And Doc goes, do you know what this means?
It means that this damn thing doesn't work at all.
And then Marty leaves and he's trying to convince him. And this is the really funny thing is he spouts off all this historical knowledge of okay, future boy, who's the president in 1985? And he's like, oh, it's Ronald Reagan. Yeah, it's Ronald Reagan. And he's like, Ronald Reagan?
The actor? But what's something I read that I think is really funny is when Ronald Reagan watched the movie, he went, hey, stop the movie. Stop the movie. They said my name. Rewind it. Did they say Ronald Reagan, the actor? He had them rewind. He had the projectionist rewind that scene multiple times.
Oh my God.
Because he was like, they said my name. They said my name. I was just like, wow, great job, buddy. But I love when he's running down the hill with all these blueprints. Yeah. And he's just like, let me guess, Jack Benny is second in command.
Yeah, he just spouts out all these random historical figures. But what gets him is he tells Doc how he created the flux capacitor.
Right.
Which was basically like, he was in his bathroom or whatever he was doing.
Cocaine.
Yeah, fell off the toilet, smacked his head, and then same thing, Doc whips opens the door and then pulls him inside.
Right.
And so now they're inside, and they're brainstorming how to get Marty back home. And I think the scene is they're watching a video.
Yes,
on
they're
the
watching the video and rewinding it.
Yeah, and I just love the line that Doc had because he goes, "Of course your president has to be an actor. He has to look good on TV."
Yeah. And then that's when the 1.21 gigawatts comes up.
Yeah, so he's watching it back to figure out how to fuel the time machine. And he says it's 1.21 gigawatts of electricity to power that. Right. And then he basically has a panic attack.
1.21 gigawatts.
1.21 gigawatts. But I love when he gets quiet. He's like, 1.21 gigawatt. Like, it's such good acting by Christopher Lloyd to play with the levels of the thing.
But he has an actual breakdown, runs into his house, starts yelling at these pictures of like founding fathers. He grabs Thomas Edison and he's like, Tom!
So in the background, one of the pictures is of himself.
Really?
Yeah, I thought that was cool. It was like on the top, but I just love it. He's like, where did I go wrong?
Yeah.
And Marty's like, how am I going to... Well, I'm stuck.
Yeah, Doc basically drops a line where he says the only way to generate that much power is a bolt of lightning.
Yeah,
and then Marty goes, "What did you say?"
Yeah, it's lightning.
A bolt of lightning. And that's where the flyer at the beginning of the movie with the crazy lady,
the clock tower.
Yep,
save the clock tower.
Gave him a flyer telling him the specific time that it's going to strike the clock tower. But here we go, plot hole time. So was it exactly precisely? I think it was 10:04 p.m. But like, what second? Like 10:04.
Yeah.
20 seconds. What was it? Literally exactly 10:04. Because if not, like, imagine, like, because it has to be literally perfect.
Exactly.
Right? Like, the lightning has to hit the tower, has to hit the cord, go, like, if it's not literally to the second, it wouldn't work.
Hi, I'm the director of Back to the Future. You may be wondering about how exactly the lightning worked. You know what? Don't think about it. That's all I'm imagining. It's just, that's the way that they just don't think about it.
Stop asking questions.
Just enjoy the movie.
Stop asking questions.
Did you know Huey Lewis is in this movie? But you're totally right.
Yeah. And he gets the flyer, and so they figure out that's kind of like the plan.
Yeah.
But Doc introduces the concept of basically ruining time.
Yep.
Because he's like, okay, perfect. It's not going to strike for like another week. And Marty's like, dude, that's sick. I could totally go around town.
Hang out here, listen to music.
And then this is another great moment of the soundtrack. It gets really eerie, and Doc's like, dude, you can't do that.
Yeah, you've ruined things already.
You need to stay here. You need to not talk to anyone.
Do you remember that farmer guy that you messed his life up for?
Yeah, you're gonna ruin things. You need to stay in the house, not talk to anyone. And then Marty has this like despairing look on his face, and he asks him, he's like, "Who have you come in contact with?" And he's like,
everybody
might have like,
the mayor,
met my parents." And then Doc
Craig Scott.
Yeah, exactly. Throws out that line. But that's when that like major like problem in the film needs to be solved. Yep. Marty needs to correct basically what had happened with his parents.
The fact that his mom wants to hook up with him.
Right. And also go back in time.
Exactly.
So the next thing following that is I think they go to the school.
They do. Which how did none of the high school students see Christopher Lloyd and be like, why is that grown up on our like campus? Or have things just changed for our lifetime? Where seeing like an old crazy man on a high school, it's just like, dude, someone's got to call someone. Like, that guy's going to try to sell someone drugs.
Well, also, it's like they are just two random people that just walked into a high school.
And no hall monitor or anything. They're like, oh, no, that's fine. Let them walk around. like you're good. Like, no one checks that. Even does Strickland bump into him?
I don't think so.
No, but just...
But still, they just, like, walk in.
They just walk in. But I just love when it's like, which one's your father? And then it just shows George... He's got a kick me sign, and he's like, that's not funny, guys. And it's just so humiliating. And I love the fact that Christopher Lloyd's like, what did your mother ever see in him? Like,
he literally even says, he's like, maybe you were adopted.
Oh, it's like what I would never want to be.
No, it was really rough.
And he helps him pick up his books, and then he's trying so hard to get them together, because he's like, Lorraine, this is McFly, this is George McFly. Guys, fall in love, sleep together. I need to be born.
Well, because the thing that he points out is, Doc is like, isn't there some, like, social event or gathering that they can attend? Like, what did your parents do then? And he's like, nothing. I don't know. They don't do anything. And then he finds the enchantment under the sea dance, and he's like, they're supposed to go to that.
Yeah.
But then it's the scene that you're talking about where he's trying to introduce his dad to
multiple
his mom.
times.
And it's like, picture like you're talking to a lion, okay? You're talking to a lion, and you're trying to show the lion like a trough of water.
It's right there.
There's just a hanging piece of raw meat, and that is all the lion is staring at, and you're like, look over here.
It's right here.
Look over here.
It's literally right here.
Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Just shut down every single time. And it's just so, like, as an adult, it's so frustrating. I'm like, come on, just make out.
It was really bad.
Get together.
And then I think after that, they go to lunch.
But wait, before that, when he's like, Doc, this is heavy.
Yeah.
There's that word again.
Heavy.
Why are things so heavy in the future? Is there a problem with the Earth's gravitational pull?
So good. Like, it's just, that's why they call it a perfect screenplay. It's just, that's such a good line.
Such a good line. And then, they go to lunch, and basically Marty is trying to, like, convince his dad to, like, keep trying to go after Lorraine. But he's like, he's honest. He's like, dude, she didn't even know I existed.
Yeah, but he's like, isn't she cute? Isn't she attractive? And he's like, yeah. What? I think that she would rather sleep with you. But, and it's just like, yeah, but dude, just shoot your shot. Michael Jordan said, shoot 99 shots. Like
just do it.
Just do it. Try it.
But this is another really cool scene that Marty learns about his dad, is because in Marty's mind, like, his dad basically did nothing.
Just a failure.
Yeah, but he's writing science fiction comics.
Which is really cool, because for that time, like, people would be like, that stuff's gonna rot your brain. Like, read about the war. Just, they was really seen as trash. So it's really cool to see that his dad had that habit of writing.
Yeah.
Science fiction stories about visitors.
Yeah, and so Biff walks over, and Marty trips him, and this was the shot that you were describing where, like, Marty stands up and then Biff stands up. Yeah, the camera, and it makes him look like a literal titan. Like, he looks like absolutely massive. And this is where he grabs Marty, he's about to punch him, and then your favorite line he says,
"Why don't you make like a tree
and get out of here?"
Just so, Back to the Future Part 2, we'll say it when it gets there, because there's a part with that just, it's even hard for me to say it without going, like, it really is. But what I love is when he does, because Biff trips, and I think his face smashes into something.
He falls.
Yeah, and someone's just like, everybody's like, no, shh, that new guy, he tripped that guy. and Strickland's just watching. I forgot, how does the scene end?
So he trips them, they get into a fight, they break it up, and then I'm pretty sure after that they go back to Doc's lab, quasi lab.
Yeah.
And Doc basically shows him the model that he was working on for the time machine, which, to me it was kind of funny because obviously he's a scientist and he wants to test out his theory, but he has this literal perfect model of the entire town, and then the time machine is this little red Corvette that they wind up.
Cocaine.
Yeah.
Even for the 1950s cocaine.
Yeah. How he did that so fast. How
and
did he make
it's perfect. So, but my favorite part of that scene is when the race car, it jumps off of the thing.
Catches on fire.
It catches on fire, and there's a bunch of oil rags, and there's a close-up of Christopher Lloyd with his goggles, and he goes like that as the entire place starts burning. I don't know why, but that shot of him, it just always makes me lose it.
And so they're talking, and they're like, okay, this is going to work great, blah, blah, blah. And then they hear a knock on the door, and it's Lorraine.
She followed him.
Kind of weird.
Yeah. Kind of.
Super
weird. But also think about it. It's like, Where's Marty? Oh, he's at that weird guy's lab on the
but also
out
like
in the country.
She couldn't like Facebook stalk him or Insta stalk. Like there's no way for like you just run into that person again.
Yeah, how did she know?
Who told her? And this is me rationalizing stalking.
Yeah, exactly. Just being like, well, I mean, in some cases, if you have to change the future, it's okay. Someone's like listening to this and they're like, really? Finally. It's like, no, that's not what we're saying.
But so Lorraine shows up and they quickly cover the time machine. And this is where Doc really understands the severity of the situation.
Because Doc's watching in the background.
Yeah, and Lorraine basically says, she's like, Marty, you should ask me to the Enchantment Under the Sea dance.
Oh, God.
And Doc's face is just the perfect, like, personification of we're screwed.
Yeah, exactly.
We're literally screwed.
You're stuck here, and everything as we know it is changing.
Yeah. So they kind of wrap that up. She leaves, and if I'm not mistaken, I think this is where he goes to try and convince George to ask out Lorraine.
Yes, and so this is something where I was like, how did he get inside his house?
Ooh,
that was my thought, because it's like, he's like, okay, I need to do something to convince my dad, and all of a sudden, he's standing right in front of George.
Like, George is laying in bed.
Asleep.
And he's, like, standing, what I'm assuming is on, like, the foot of his bed frame.
Yeah, inside the alien costume from earlier.
The radiation suit.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, how did he break a window? Like, did he do the Strangers and, like, crawl upstairs?
See, for me, though, so, like, we go through this scene, right? So he puts a headset on his, like, ears. And so, funny enough, so the record that he puts into the, like, whatever it is, Walkman to play it, it says Van Halen on it.
Yeah.
I looked for that song.
It sounds nothing like Van Halen.
Well, I looked for that song for probably like a half an hour the other night. I couldn't find it.
Yeah.
I even used like the Shazam app that like can listen to music, and Shazam was like, we don't know what the hell you're talking about.
Yeah, it just to me it just sounded like random guitar.
It's just like a guitar riff. But yeah, so
he freaks out because he's like, what is this noise?
Yeah, and he basically is like,
my name is Darth Vader.
Okay, so how did he leave?
Again, I think it was like a Stranger situation where he broke in through the window.
Okay.
Which is now causing its own time issues, but he broke in through the window, scared the hell out of him, and then got the hell out of Dodge.
Yeah, and so the next scene, basically, is Marty's at, I think, a gas station.
He is. Oh, and he's trying to figure out the soda bottle. He's like,
he can't
God, how do you open this?
Yeah, and his dad just grabs it, opens it, and he goes, Darth Vader came to my house last night and said he would melt my brains if I didn't take Lorraine to the dance.
There we go. What I love about the scene is he's sweaty. Like, he's so, sweaty. Like, armpit sweat, like, it's sticking to his... And he almost gets hit by a car again. He's like, Marty! And then, like, he's just frazzled. And he's just like, Marty! Darth Vader! The Vulcans! Like, just disgusting. And then really this is the part where the chocolate milk, right?
Yeah, so this is where they're like, he's like, Marty's like, calm the hell down, chill out, because first of all, it was me.
Yeah, don't pass out, please.
Say that. But he's like, it's okay, Lorraine's in the cafe, but before we get to that scene, we need to call something back that's very important.
Go for it.
Biff made a very clear request that George would not go back to the cafe.
Yep.
Which is important for the next scene. So they go into the cafe, and Marty's trying to give him advice. He's like, well,
confidence. He's trying to give him confidence.
He's like, what do I say? He's like, I don't know how to talk to girls like that. And he's like, just tell her, George, that she's the most beautiful girl in the world. There's no one like her. And he's behind him, just like aggressively taking notes.
He's just like, beautiful girl behind him.
And Marty's like, what are you doing?
Your destiny. And so he's just like, is there two D's in Destiny? One D? And he's like, what are you doing? And he's like taking notes. Like, you might as well just grab it and throw it and be like, just don't be yourself. For 5 seconds, just don't be yourself.
Here's a mask. Put this mask on. You're going to be someone else.
Yeah, just put it on and be someone else. You know John Wayne? Did those movies come out now? No? All right. And so, yeah, he walks in with this, like, swagger. Like, he actually has a little bit of swagger. And then this is the...
He pumps himself up. He walks over to the bar. And he goes...
Lou, give me a milk.
Chocolates. And then someone off screen perfectly just throws this like malt chocolate, and he catches it and then just goes like that. Yeah, see, he like catches it and then throws it back, and his hair goes back. It's just
how many takes do you think that took of the glass shattering?
At least 10.
Probably.
Like so many. Like they had a glass budget.
Yeah,
like the amount of glass that broke, and you got the 1950s music playing on the jukebox, and he walks over to Lorraine,
and he bombs,
and he just
totally completely bombs.
You're my density. And she's just like, what the hell is this guy taught? Density? Like science? No, like density.
Like in terms of hard scenes to watch, this, in my opinion, for the whole movie, probably takes the cake.
I could see that because it's just like, come on, dude.
It's really hard to watch.
You were literally like, you were so close.
Yeah.
The finish line was right there because she's like, what's that, George? And he's just like, density. He's just stuck on it.
I'm your density.
It's like, there was a time, and Jared knows the story, there was a time where I was on stage as an actor, and I had a Fight Club monologue, and I decided to be cool and wear makeup, get dressed up, and I threw my jacket off, and I was in front of a crowd of people, and I said...
an auditorium full. It wasn't like 10 or 15, it was like hundreds of people.
Yep, and I looked at them, and I went, men... And then blank. Nothing. Like, I stood under that light, and I was like, come on.
It just went up to your brain, it was like, lights out.
It was literally like Men in Black, where they do the, look at this.
No, just a little flash, and everything goes back the way it was.
Like, I forgot everything. And I'm standing there, and a bunch of people I know the monologue from Fight Club, and they're like, your next line is... And I just like George, I'm like, man, density. Until my teacher said, you can grab your script, which I might as well just jump off the stage. But
head first.
Yeah, so he's trying to say the words, and then you hear McFly, and it's just like, oh god, America's Bully.
And then it's because, like, if you picture the atmosphere of the cafe, like, there's music playing, people are actually dancing, like, everyone's having a great time, and then it's like a record that like stops, and you could like hear a pencil drop, and he just goes, McFly, I thought I told you not to come in here.
This entire town is terrified of a teenager. Like, they're pooping their pants. Like, dude, he's coming in here. Like, cut the music.
Yeah. And then this is where Marty's situation goes from good to or not even good, probably bad to worse, I would say, because he trips Biff again.
Yeah.
And then it's another common line that's used throughout the movies where he basically, like, he confronts him, he's like about to, fight with them, and he goes, hey Biff, what's that? And he goes,
exactly.
And then literally, like, full on punches
him in the face and knocks him down. And then that's when he runs out.
Yeah.
And the entire crew, the weird crew with him, like the 3D glasses.
Guys,
yeah, the guy who's got the 3D glasses that near the end is like watching, like just super creepy.
Basically, it's just this group of, like, 3 guys that are just, like, Basically, they could be like, hey, today, we're gonna rob a bank. And they're like, oh, Biff, that's a great idea. We should do that. Like, they will probably do anything for this man.
Oh, God.
But basically ensues a chase around this, like, very used part of town.
And the music kicks in. The dun, dun, dun.
Yeah.
So the score kicks right in, and Marty makes his own skateboard, which he probably should have made royalties off of it.
Robs that kid.
Yeah, he steals it.
He picks up the kid, sets him down, rips off the top part of the skateboard. Yeah, which is supposed to be like a spaceship thing.
Yeah, something.
And then just turns it into a skateboard and basically gets chased around the town by Biff, which ends up Biff into slamming into a truck full of manure.
But it's so bad because as he's doing that, someone's like, who's that guy? And Lorraine turns around and goes,
it's an absolute dream.
Yeah, that's
God. It's just like she just...
I stop every time I was watching this, and I'm like, there was someone in a writer's room that was like, no, she needs to be thirstier for her stuff. Like, she needs, like, cut, run it again, more.
We need you to drool.
Like, it was a lot.
It's so uncomfortable. But I do love when it's... like, the music cuts to hear them go, shit! It's like nail, and all of the manure comes in.
Which also, fun fact, is seen throughout all of the movies.
That's true.
Every single movie.
think the second one is my favorite manure scene.
I think the third one's my favorite.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
So
they crash the car, and then basically at this point, I'm trying to think of what comes next. because they crash the car. They're at Biff's house. No, they're not at Biff's house. They're
I think this is...
Oh, is this where they go back to George's house?
Yes, because he has that line where he's like, I gotta up your confidence. Like, what's gonna happen is at this time, I'm gonna kind of mess with Lorraine, which I feel so bad for Lorraine. Like, Marty has to pretend to mess with her so that George comes in and goes, hey, you. And it's just like, God, she's just getting assaulted by all these men. Like, it's so bad. But he's like, get your damn... Do I need to swear?
God damn it, George, swear.
It's so good. But it's, again, like we've talked before we filmed, where it's like, whoa... Like, for a PG movie,
that's a lot. Yeah.
Like, all the stuff that I forgot as a kid.
If PG stands for poop garbage.
But no, so he says, God damn it, George, you have to. This is what you have to do. So they're building it up where this is what needs to happen. Mm-hmm. And this is right around when Marty goes into the diner and he writes Doc a letter because he keeps trying to say, Doc, the night that I come back, something awful happens. And Doc is like, don't tell me this, it'll ruin everything. So it's a really cool scene where the music gets low and he's writing down the letter and he keeps looking out to the street and he's just like, how do I say this? Like, how do I tell him that he's going to get shot?
Multiple times.
By terrorists. And so he's like stopping and starting and stopping and starting. It's a really powerful scene.
Yeah.
But I think now is when we get to the dance.
Yeah, so I think Marty picks Lorraine up in the car.
Yep.
And he's like, hey, is it okay if we park for a little bit? And then this is where he gets to see the side of his mom that, like, he probably never assumed as a kid.
And probably never wanted to see.
And also the age, like, they're 17 and she's, like, smoking cigarettes, chugging beer.
I love that part with the drinking. She's like, Jesus, you smoke too?
Yeah, he's, like, just baffled that his mom is doing anything wrong.
Yeah, and even though, he grew up with an alcoholic mom, so it's like, why are you so shocked that she drank early? But I love when she's like, God, Marty, you sound like my mom. And he's just like, oh, yeah, I mean... What am I supposed to say? And he keeps, like, looking at his watch, like, George, come on! Yeah. I don't want to do this.
And then there's actually a part where they kiss, which, bold move, by the way, to put that in the movie. And then she says, I don't know what to say, but that was like kissing my brother.
Oh, God. It's just so, when that happens, it's just like...
It's bad.
What if Marty was a different guy and was like, ugh, I'm into this.
I'm trying to remember. Wasn't it like College Humor?
Yeah.
Did a video about it where he like actually like went through with it
with his mom.
Yeah, and he's like, Doc, I messed up. I slept with my mom.
Exactly. There's no going back. I'm sorry, Marty. You ruined everything. Because it's just so. I kept thinking like, what if Marty was a different type of guy and was like really like wanted to make the family tree one line. It's so gross. But no, so door swings open and you're like,
which is supposed to be George.
It's supposed to be George. Yeah. And George is even like, there's that funny scene where George is just dancing, like looking at the clock.
Yeah.
But yeah, so door swings open. It's like, oh, thank God it's George.
It's like Marty has this huge sigh of relief when the door opens and it's Biff.
Oh, it's Biff. And I like when he's like,
you caused $300 damage to my car, you son of a bitch.
Ugh.
And then they take Marty to this like random car, and they throw him in the trunk
because the trunk's open.
Yeah, and it's the band that was singing at the dance.
So good.
It's such a good scene.
And then the doors open and all of them get out and there's this cigarette, weed, whatever, smoke that comes out and they all just have these death stares at these three punks.
Yeah, and they chase them off and then I love the line because he's like, hey, Marty's in the trunk, get me out of here. And he's like, where's the keys? And he's like, it's in here.
Yeah. They even say like jazz cigarettes, which like as a kid I was like, oh, that's funny. And I'm like, oh yeah, no, that's weed.
That's weed.
That's weed. But I love when they chase him off, like they have like a drumstick, one of the guys, and they chuck it at him. Like they throw it at him. And so now they're trying to figure out how to open the trunk. And you have the situation where Lorraine is crying and screaming and it's really uncomfortable. And George is like, I'm confident. One time in my life I'm confident. And the door opens and he's like, hey, you. And I love when he goes, oh, no. And it's just like, oh, God, your entire life is just, no. And then just the one time where you can be a hero and it's like my biggest bully. It's just like, leave him alone. And it's so, like almost snaps his arm, and you have that close up of just George's face and the sweat.
But it's such a cool scene because like you forget about everything else that's happening in the movie.
100%.
Like you forget that Marty needs to go back in time, that he needs to like leave at a certain time because the clock is going to strike. He's on a very tight schedule.
Yes.
But all you're like just paying attention to is this one moment. And then George knocks out Biff.
Yes, the close up of the fist tightening and his face turning, and he just boom, just knocks him out.
It's a great scene.
And he's just like, can I have your hand? And then lifts him up, and people are like, oh my god, he did it. Someone finally did it. Ding dong, the witch is dead. The witch is dead. Like, everybody, like, all the townspeople come out, and they hang up banners that are like, he finally killed him. He did it. Everybody murdered him. Is it safe to come out now? Like, and people are just, it's the talk of the town. Like, it's so good. But one of the band members cuts his hand by trying to
Marty out of the trunk.
Tries to get Marty out of the trunk, so he cuts his hand.
And it's cool because Marty gets out of the trunk and basically sees that all happen.
Yes,
which is cool. But so then he's like, you have to play it, you have to keep playing even though your hand's cut because like they have to kiss and they fall in love and I don't die, I don't get erased from existence.
Exactly.
But he's trying to like not obviously say that because it's gonna like melt people's brains. From the future.
We need a guy who could play the guitar, and then that quick hard cut to Marty's playing the guitar on the stage.
Yeah, and it's a great scene, but I know that you don't like this next part.
I really don't, because the entire movie, it's like the stakes are high, the stakes are high, the stakes are high, and it's like, oh wow, we just had that really intense scene. Like, he won. George won.
Yeah,
George won.
Yeah,
and so my mind, I think that song should have played. They kissed. Thumbs up. Obviously he doesn't disappear in the picture. He could be disappearing, and then the kiss happens and he appears, and then go right into Johnny Be Good.
Yeah.
But the stakes, it already happened, so why do we need some ginger freckle guy that needs to get punched in the face, maniacally laugh like the Joker, who like, can I cut in? And he just starts howling, and it's like, George!
Yeah, and he's dancing with Lorraine, and Marty's on the stage, can't play the guitar anymore, and what I mentioned earlier, that fake hand that comes up, that's like basically turning into nothing.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden, George just walks in, pushes him, sound like the huge climactic sound.
Yeah, while Earth Angel is playing.
Right, kisses her, and then basically kind of solidifies Marty's existence because he has the picture of him, his brother, and his sister that are like disappearing.
Gives the thumbs up.
All come back.
Yeah. But that's the one, like, I was taking notes and I was like, the stakes were so high, it already happened, why did we need that? Like, that could have been cut. That part with the ginger. Because then it's like, well, what if George didn't stop the ginger kid? Does that mean
also,
that...
like, that's so weird that he would punch... like, what basically is, like, Thanos to this town in the face, destroy Biff, but then not confront this, like, ginger guy?
Exactly.
It's weird. Because it seems like he's not going to.
Yeah, and there was no sign of that ginger kid throughout the entire movie. No. Like, had he been in the background, I'd been like, haha, Biff, you're right.
Or, like, if he was one of Biff's henchmen.
That would make sense.
But it's just
It's just some stranger sees it and is just like, I know that he punched out Biff, but it's my turn. It's just like...
so weird.
But I do like that after that, like, he's playing Johnny Be Good, and that girl comes up and is like, have you ever thought about running for school president? Like,
it's like the town is like, sees him as this, like...
God. You see him as a god, all because he punched the one kid out.
Yeah. So then they,
So then Marty appropriates an entire rock... Marty invents rock and roll.
Yeah, he says, I'm sorry, Chuck Berry, this is mine.
Yeah.
And then there's that one line, of course, where the band that was playing at the concert, he's on the phone, and he goes...
You know that new sound you looking for?
And then he holds the phone up,
goes, listen to this, as he's playing. So the thing about Johnny Be Good is watching him, it's like, that's not Michael J. Fox.
No, singing, definitely.
No,
definitely.
But like as a kid, I was like, he's really good. But as an adult, I'm like, that's a whole other voice.
It sounds almost nothing like him.
No, but I do love when he starts shredding like heavy metal, and everyone's like, ow, my freaking ears!
Like, what are you doing right now?
They're like, I don't understand. And then him saying, you guys might not understand it, but your kids are gonna love it. Oh man, I don't know. It's something about the delivery of that and him like pulling at his shirt with his neck.
Yeah,
great line.
And then like reality hits.
Yeah, where he's like, "Oh my god, I might be stuck here. I might have solved everything and then ruined my life."
So he's running, and there's actually a really cool line where he's talking to George and Lorraine.
This is, I would say, besides all the action stuff, this is my favorite scene. Like even thinking about it gives me chills.
Yeah, because he's basically like, if you set your mind to anything, you can accomplish whatever you want.
Exactly.
Which sticks in his dad's brain because he actually says that towards the end of the movie. When they go back to the future, name of the movie. And so he like literally is like running out of like the gym or whatever, talks to them, and then he has the line too where he's like, "Hey, so if you guys ever have kids and like he sets fire to the living room rug, go easy on him."
Go easy on him. It's like, yeah, what did they do? Like just beat him?
But like, if I'm Lorraine and George, it's like, what?
I don't.
It's such a weird thing.
When he ran out, they're like, "Did you?" So he was cool and all. But what the hell did that mean?
What's that code? It's like he being followed?
Right? And then, so also with the scene coming up where, with the DeLorean and everything, what I really liked that I hadn't noticed before is when the cop's like, "Do you have a permit for that?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, I have a permit." And he starts pulling out money out of his pocket.
Oh,
Doc literally bribes the cop. Like before he writes the letter for Doc.
Crime.
Yeah, all you got to do is bribe the right person.
Just have enough money.
Just exactly. So he bribes the cop, and then this is when Christopher Lloyd Doc is trying to plug everything in.
Well, see, I love this scene because it goes back to Doc, and he's essentially having a panic attack because Marty's not there yet, and he looks at his clock and he goes,
"Damn, where is that kid?"
He shows up in the car, and he like. His excuse for basically being late is, "Sorry, I had to change."
Right? And I love when he shows up because he's just like, "Doc!" And Doc's like, "Dude, we need that lightning to hit right now."
You are like 5 minutes late, and if you miss this, you're literally stuck in time.
You're stuck in time. You're known as the cool guy that saved the world, but you're stuck here.
You're literally stuck here. Yeah.
It's done.
So, pretty climactic scene. I don't know if we need to break it down in like great detail, but basically... drives away, drives back, cable comes undone, so it's like a really big climactic scene where they have to like plug it back in so it works.
Yep.
Marty, one thing to take away is Marty gives him the leather, and Doc finds the one that he was writing that basically said like, "Hey, when you go back to 1985, you get shot," and Doc visibly like rips the letter.
And he keeps yelling, "I don't want to hear this," and he's like, "You need to hear this about your future." And it's just so, when he yells future, it's like, man, the stakes are high. That's what I love about this movie, is the stakes are constantly just getting higher and higher, and it's like, are they going to pull this off? Like, even as an adult, like, I know there's 2 other movies, but I'm like, dude, are they going to pull it off?
Like, what happens? Yeah. So, cut to, essentially, Marty goes back in time, but he makes a pretty, I think, intelligent decision, but in a weird way. So he is like, he ripped up the thing, he's gonna die. I have a time machine.
Yeah, exactly.
I can literally just go back earlier, but it's like, okay, in my mind, I'm like, he gave himself like 15 minutes, maybe 10 minutes.
Not a ton of time.
You have a time machine.
Go back 2 hours.
Go back a day. Like, give yourself some time. Like, don't go back 10 minutes. So,
like half of an episode of Simpsons.
Yeah, so he gets back, runs to the mall, which is now Lone Pine.
But one thing I like...
Twin Pine Mall, I think.
One thing I like about the scene is when he pulls back in, it shows the XXX, like, films. He has the car, and the homeless guy's like...
Crazy drunk driver.
But anyway, so he's running up to... Because the car ran out of plutonium. Right?
I don't know. So,
something happened.
He couldn't use the car. So he runs there, and then he watches Doc get shot again.
And he's like, wow, so I screwed up again.
Yeah, then like the Libyans chase his past self, and then he runs up to Doc, and it's actually, in my opinion, kind of like a eerie scene.
Oh, yeah.
Because like Marty collapses on the ground and is like basically crying because Doc's dead, and then you just see Doc's eyes. He's like this, like eyes wide open, mouth open, and then he blinks, and then the music changes.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's kind of terrifying.
Oh, yeah, it is.
And then he sits up and he shows him that he has a bulletproof vest on, and then somehow, like, taped the letter.
Yeah.
But there's no, like, crease. Like, it literally looks like a fresh letter.
And it's so broken. That letter is so broken. Like, when...
It's also 30 years old.
Exactly. But I do love when he pulls that out, and he's just like, I thought, Doc, you told me that you couldn't read about the future. Yeah. And he's just like, some rules are meant... Something like, some rules are meant to be broken. It's like...
Doesn't he say, like, to hell with it?
Yes, exactly. And it's just like, oh my god, so great.
It was really
and then, so now Marty goes back home.
Yeah, he goes back home, and this is where
the truck is there.
This is where kind of all the changes that he had done kind of come to realization. So he gets home, like it's a bigger house, like his brother's wearing a suit because he works at an office. But my favorite line is they see Biff too, who's like a tow truck driver or something.
He's like he's just a manual cleaner for
and
them.
He has like a hunch now.
And you made a great point. Why would you keep around the guy that assaulted your wife and assaulted you for your entire life?
Yeah.
Like, that's a weird, like, clean up my problems,
it's
clean
like
up my issues.
Power complex.
Yeah, you know he doesn't pay him. He's like, you could sleep on the patio, maybe.
Yeah.
Here's my table scraps.
But yeah, so they Biff runs in and he's like, "Oh, George, your delivery came." And it's a printed copy of the comic book that he had said. But then he gives that line back that Marty had said to him in the gym. He's like, "Kids, if you set your mind to anything, you can accomplish it," or something along those lines. And I just thought that was a cool, like, connection.
Oh, no, it totally is. What I like is when he runs in and he's like, the truck's been totaled. And they're like, "The truck's been totaled? What are you talking about?" And like, and then they look and it's like, "What happened with the truck?"
Yeah.
And they can't, like, the parents came back from like a tennis match because, you know, rich white people do tennis.
Right.
And he like slaps her butt and I was like, okay, it's still kind of uncomfortable.
Yeah. But, I mean, the next scene really is where number 2 starts.
Yes.
Where Doc comes back, which...
And he pulls down the 3D shades.
Yeah, it's... my favorite thing is his outfit. He has a tie on, but it's a completely clear tie.
Yes.
Like, it's so weird. But
I love when he's like, "It's your kids, Marty. It's your kids." And he's like, "What? Do they grow up to be assholes or something?" Like, it's just so... It's the way he says it is like, there's no other Michael J. Fox.
No.
It's your kids, Marty.
Well, I'm sure that we missed some stuff.
Of course. But then they get in the car and he's like, what about roads?
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.
And then it flies up and then just... And then we kick right back in time. Dude.
Great movie.
Great. So, yeah, like you said, obviously we missed some things.
I'm sure there's like a huge plot section that we just totally forgot.
Yeah, exactly. You're watching two people that have seen this movie a few times, but we're not... Just watch it yourself and you're like, "Oh, these guys..." Just, email us your problems and we'll delete it.
Yeah. Well, stick around. We're going to release an episode every Sunday.
Yes,
we're
we
going
are.
to do part 2 the following Sunday.
Yep.
But stay tuned for more.
I'm so excited. Like, I need you guys to know I'm pumped for this show and for Back to the Future Part 2. So definitely, like, comment, subscribe, share, and I hope you enjoyed.
Adios.
Adios.